Welcome to the Ultimate Coach Podcast, Conversations from Being, inspired by the book, The Ultimate Coach, written by Amy Hardison and Alan Thompson. Join us each week with the intention of expanding your state of being, and your experience will be remarkable. Remember, this is a podcast about being. It is a podcast about you. To explore more deeply, visit theultimatecoachbook.com. Now, enjoy today's conversation from Being.
Hello and good day. My name is Philippe Bartu, and for this episode of the Ultimate Coach Podcast, I am being joined by Darren Farfan. I've been practicing pronouncing his name. He has got one of the most beautiful accents. I love listening to him talk, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. Darren is someone who, how would I describe him? As someone who is a man with such a big heart, generosity, kindness, and resilience. What's interesting about Darren is he is part of JP Morgan's group of the Creator Circle. And one of the things that he does is he leads groups of 10 to 12 people for a year-long program where they get to create the space so that the ideas and the dreams they have in their head become reality in 12 months. So that's who we get to speak to today. And this is going to be a conversation about creation. One of the things that came up when speaking to Darren about the Ultimate Coach book is he was really loving chapter 27, which is all about creation. So in today's episode, we're going to be exploring creation, and more specifically, what does it mean to create? When we create, we either create from the past or we create the future from the future. And that's the context through which we're going to be having this conversation with. So, Darren, thank you so much for joining us.
Philip, my brother, I'm going to bring the accent strong here for you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Thank you so much for doing this in general. It's such a gift and so generous of you. It's an outpouring of service from your heart. And I, for one, just want to thank you for the work you're doing and the service you're providing to the community and to everyone who listens. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And, I feel like this is one of the topics that I'm really, really excited to explore with you. And, to me, The Ultimate Coach is really a book about accessing freedom, self-expression, and the ability to show up in the world in however way you want to show up. That's going to be powerful, to deal with things powerfully. And that's what some of the things that I have accessed through reading this book. And I want to start with just hearing a little bit more about what would you like to share around this idea of creating from the past and creating the future from the future.
Oh man, what a great topic to explore with you, because I know that we have had a couple opportunities to speak and each time has been a rich experience of discovery, of being. And I just love the space you create, the strong container of love and support. And I know it opens me up. I know, so I can catch myself talking a lot, but I hope you can help me to guide me, right? So feel free to interrupt if I'm talking too much here. But for me, and this is my personal experience, is having experienced for myself the being a victim of my past, of my circumstance, but experiencing that in the now and not even realizing it. So looking at my story and being in my story in such a way that disempowers me in this moment and actually cuts off my access to creating, cuts off my access to at least creating more intentionally the vision and the higher achievement that I want in the world,
Right.
So a lot of my personal story has been overcoming and transcending. And I know it's a human story. It's, it's not just a personal story, but, I consider myself a phoenix, burning up in the ashes and then recreating myself. And for me, that the learning has been that even when I'm not aware of it, some of these aspects of my story, of my being, is still tethered to the past.
Mm-hmm.
And with the help of my family and coaches, like I've been working with JP Morgan for 4 or 5 years now, and he's really helped me to hold a mirror to this way of being that is, kind of trapped in victimhood, and transcending that and continuing to choose freedom, to choose to liberate myself, to be able to create the future that I know in my heart is possible.
Well, I'd love to just hear about that. The future that you know in your heart is possible. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. As I was saying that, I was like, got a little bit of a jolt of electricity shooting through me. It's like, first of all, just the permission to dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've seen this with my clients as well. It's like sometimes you feel you literally have to give yourself the space, and I use the word permission, right? It's like the permission to dream and to dream big and to allow the desires of your heart to arise into your consciousness, and let that go without restriction. I think I've heard of, I think it's Gay Hendricks talks about the upper limit problem, like we have this tendency to hold ourselves back or to sabotage ourselves. And I've noticed it for myself. Is like, oh, am I allowed to dream that big? Do I really want a yacht out in the Caribbean, like living 3 months of the year, cruising the oceans? Yeah, I would love that. Why not?
Yeah. So with full permission to dream, like what does that look like for you? Having a yacht, would that be a dream for you?
Yeah, I mean, I laughed at it, but I grew up on a boat. Both my parents were sailors. I grew up on the sea many months of the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm a surfer. I have salt in my blood, I have salt water in my blood. So there's something about being on a boat out in the ocean, especially a sailboat, right? You cut the engines and you're just with the elements. But for me, it's also just like the adventure, the mystery, the discovery. It's all these things that I feel are there in my being. And being on a boat is a dream for me. Obviously I have family now. My wife loves the luxuries, not so much the hype.
And I get that. And I'm also going to say to you that feels kind of small when you say being on a boat is a dream. I think that being on a boat is part of a bigger dream, which I'm hearing is actually living on a boat and having an adventurous life on a boat.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about living on the boat, but definitely a lot of time.
Spending a lot of time on a boat, right? Yeah, having access to a boat and yeah.
But Philip, yes, so that's what it is, right? So you said it, the adventurous life. So I created a story that, I got married fairly young. I was 24, 25. I think I was 25 when I got married. I had my first kid that year, then had 3 kids in 4 years. So it was really fast. And I was now establishing myself as a professional. And so financially, it's been always this just above water, just, month to month and, feeding these mouths now and taking on these new responsibilities. And I fell into a kind of trap of, okay, just, I have to be this employee and earn this amount of money and, sacrifice some of the things that I had wanted as a younger person or dreamt that was possible. And, so I fell into that. And now coming into this new phase of the power to create, freedom to dream and to create what I dream, has opened up this new desire to adventure. And not just me though, like with my wife, with my kids, having these family experiences and being able to show them this world, this wonderful world, this awesome world of experiences and beauty and cultures. And so I have that strong desire, not just for me, but for them too. And yeah, you're right. That boat represents the freedom to do that. And, it speaks to that desire, for adventure, for the ability and the financial ability to give my family as much experience as I can. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm enrolled in your vision, and I'm already there, and I can vision you, and I just really want that for you, Darren. And so whenever we speak to our dreams, it's often met with the question, how? How do we do that? And so we're often looking, if this is what I want to create, what do I need to do? And I know that for me, that's been the place where I haven't been looking in a way that was helpful for me, because a lot of the times when I want to create something, I just look, well, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, and then that's where I would get stuck. And I know from the conversations that we've had, and this is really about who do you need to be so that you can be the father that is adventurous and takes his family on a life of adventure that includes spending time every year living on boats and discovering the world together as a family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, Philip. I think that the doing is partly programmed, it's programmed into us that's the way to create in the world is, do more to create more, this idea.
Yeah.
And, when you think about it though, it's like doing really, like knowing what to do or thinking I know what to do really comes from the past.
Right.
Talking about being anchored in the past, right? It's like you have to rely on knowledge from what you've experienced in the past and what you've made that mean in the now, right?
Yeah.
What you're pointing to is getting access to something that you have not experienced before, and that doesn't exist in your awareness yet. How do you do that? Is recreating your being in such a way that you start to access new ways of seeing and new ideas about what you could do as a possibility.
So I love that we have a specific example here. How does that look like for you to recreate your being for this to be a possibility for you?
For me, well, I told you, I was in this employee mindset for much of my life. Right? I've had a few entrepreneurial adventures, but mainly my experience has been this being an employee and climbing the ladder, of success, call it that. So I had a beautiful time. I got to what I would say the pinnacle of my career was working in KPMG, which is a Big Four consulting firm. And I created this idea. This is my dream job. But in my heart, I knew that wasn't true, right? I was like, there's something else calling to me. I wanted to serve as a coach. And also I wanted to serve independently. But I was terrified, Philip. I was terrified of taking that step of independence, of what do they call it? The golden handcuffs, right? It's like a salary month of the safety of that, the perceived safety. And I just knew that I had this calling to serve at a higher level, but my being was not in alignment with the vision that I had, who I was being. I was being a good employee. I was being afraid. I was being small I was being tethered, literally tethered. And it was horrific experience. Yeah. It was heart-rendering. So, part of my work with John at the beginning was, first of all, trusting myself enough to dream, to believe, and to start taking those steps that would carry me to what I wanted, to step into being a coach, step into being a businessman, step into being an entrepreneur. And for me, I needed support. I needed support.
Yeah. And I think what I'm also hearing is stepping out of not being what you know yourself to be.
Say more.
Well, you had an identity of who you are as a consultant, as an employee, and as what's possible for you when you are being that identity. But stepping into a coach, it's almost like you've never known what that is. You've never known what it's like to be actually self-employed. So it's for me, it's like, rather than it being stepping into a coach or something, it's actually stepping out of what is known.
Right.
And stepping in to the possibility of discovering something new, rather than stepping into the certainty of knowing what it's going to be like as a coach, for example. Does that resonate?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
So
because it wouldn't be difficult if you just stepped out into being a coach, right? That would be like, well, yeah, but it's stepping out of the perceived safety and security.
Yes.
Of whatever financial safety and security you have as an employee to deal with the reality of life and having a family to feed and a wife to provide for and all of that requires a tremendous amount of courage that quite frankly few people have the courage to do that or even consider that as a possibility for them.
Yes, thank you for that, Philip. It's so true.
And that's why this is about freedom from what is known. And this is why what happens is, for many years, is no matter how successful you were, you knew that in a way you weren't living your dream.
Yes.
And so you were settling. And it was about saying no to a settled life, saying no to being settled, to settling for something that isn't honoring the truth of your heart and what wants to be expressed through you. And that's who I see you being in that moment.
Thank you.
Honoring your heart. Yes.
Yes. Yes. It resonates really, really strongly with me, deeply too. I mean, they say fear of the unknown is the greatest fear. It's right what you're saying. It's like, it's less the fear of the unknown, but it's the fear of leaving the known.
Yeah, it's the fear of leaving the known. Yes. That's it. And
when I took on this persona of duty and I took it serious, this idea that I had to provide for my family. I still do, but it's a different energy these days. It's more coming from a loving desire to provide and to provide more, versus this idea that I was, duty bound and obligated. It was something I had to do, at all costs. And that tied to this idea of, no, it's irresponsible to leave the known and the security and the safety of this job and the salary and move towards my desire. It's irresponsible. It's selfish for me to do that. And, quite honestly, sometimes my wife reflected that to me. She felt that, and I think there were times when it was true. It's like, I'm willing to just throw it all away. I can't stand it anymore, and that's not a very,
and also selfish isn't a very popular word. There's a lot of negative connotation around selfish, but actually selfish is a requirement, because you are taking a stand for a possibility for you, a greater possibility for you and your family. And so even though they may not see that, it is, in a way, it is selfish, but in a good way.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. I guess for me, when I hear that, it's like, because I hold my kids, my wife, my family, my dreams so close to me, who I am. And I just know that the more I lean into love, the more I lean into what I feel is loving, then, it might seem selfish to the world or to my wife, but, I know that this is coming from, we can go there in this group. I think it's like spiritual. It's like, this is God's will for me in my life.
Because yes.
So good.
Beautiful.
It's my will aligned with divine will.
That's right.
That's when you were feeling something there.
I'm feeling that. No, there's just something that this distinction between selfless and selfish that I'm just seeing in your story. It's actually, it's the other way around. Actually, it's when you're selfish, you are honoring your own agenda. When you are selfless, you are honoring a greater agenda.
I love that. You know how I relate to it a lot is selfish with a common S is selfish. It's like my own limited desires without consideration of others. That's selfish. But selfish with a capital S is alignment with the greater self, with the highest self, right? And acting from that place, despite the conditioning or the fears that come up, that is alignment with the true self. And that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love that.
And then I think to what you're pointing to is this transcendence of all idea of self is, selfless. It's just like, I'm a vessel. I'm a vessel here to the God or to the Holy Spirit, the divine, whatever it is. It's like, how does it say in the Bible? It's like, speak to me, Lord, I'm listening. Here's your servant. Tell me what to do. That's a posture that I quite frequently take. It's like, I know that I have common as selfish tendencies, and I know that I can be strayed by, my pride and my greed sometimes. And, like there is this risk that I know that I can fall into, call it temptation if you want. But, it's like recognizing that and just being surrendered and opened to something greater to help you through that and to help you to see clearly what it is that's going to be the highest good, right? Beyond your limited idea of what's right, what's wrong, but what's greater right,
So actually, when you're saying that, what occurs to me is in the field of creation, there's this idea of you creating this amazing life with your family of adventure and everything. How does that fit in with aligning with the capital S with the greater good?
Oh, I love that question. It's interesting. As you were speaking, what came up for me was right now, my primary focus is educating my children to the best of my ability, and not just academic education, but educating them in a way that they have the knowledge, the experience, the self-knowledge, the insight that they can be a powerful contribution to community, to society. That's been a primary orientation for me and my wife for many years. Right now, that looks like a university education. And we committed to educating them outside of Trinidad and Tobago, outside of the Caribbean, in the US and in Europe, to give them that exposure and that access to something different. I wouldn't say better or worse, but I think that there are aspects of the foreign education that's better than what we can provide here. But more than that, it's just the exposure to something different, because we can become very small-minded if we stay within this region, kind of insulated. So I wanted to give them that. That is a huge financial stretch for me to do that, right? Or it is. And I didn't think it possible. But I just knew that if I stayed faithful to what was in my heart, if I stayed in faith that the path would emerge if I just took one step at a time, that it would be possible. I just knew that. And I committed to that. I spoke that to them. I made a promise to them that I would enable that opportunity for them. And that felt terrifying because the last thing I want to do is disappoint my children, and I just made that promise to them and to myself with the faith that I would create it. I would create it. And at that time, I wasn't making any US dollars at all. I wasn't, I was barely making enough to cover the bills here in Trinidad. And so I couldn't see how it was possible. I just knew that I wanted that, and I was going to align with what I felt was true. And what God wanted was that they are healthy, happy, and are making a positive contribution, like loving as much as they can. And to me, that meant getting the broadest education that they could get. But more than that, feeling the loving support and seeing their parents go beyond themselves to provide that for them so that they could believe that that's also possible for them.
So you're really being an example for them.
Yes.
By creating a possibility and breaking through your own limitations as an example of what's possible for them.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Maybe, as you say that, maybe the biggest learning for your kids is not what they get from university, but seeing you break through your own limitations and waking up that possibility for them.
Absolutely, Philip. And, as I'm saying that and you're reflecting that back to me, when I decided to leave KPMG, like finally decided, the final decision, because it was ongoing, right? But when I actually said, this is it, I'm taking a stand, I'm stepping off the ledge into this new being of being a full-time coach and consultant, I knew that I had to have my family understand, or at least I just wanted to be truthful to them. So before I spoke to my boss the night before, I gathered the family around and I sat down and I told them what I was doing and why. And, you reflecting that to me, that's true. I really just knew that I wanted them to witness somebody transcending their fearful self, transcending the programmed self, transcending someone who had created themselves. Like, listen, this was a deliberate creation to be a consultant with KPMG. Like, it didn't come naturally, right?
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying. And I did experience it where it became comfortable. It became like, I got this, I can be good at this. I can actually climb the ladder if I'm willing to do this. And that was terrifying to me because I just knew it wasn't me. And I literally sat with my kids, looking them in the face and saying, I cannot do that anymore. And what I'm seeing now from what you're reflecting is like, I did that and I said that for them so that they didn't believe that they had to do that for themselves, that they could create from their hearts, from their vision.
Yeah.
And it was hard. My daughter looked at me and she said, Dad, how are you going to do that? She was studying economics and she's like, don't you know that the economy is in a recession? It's like, how are we going to eat? And I was like, how do I answer that? Because I have no idea, but I just know I'm going to do it,
How did you answer that? With
commitment. Just, I say, I am going to make it happen. I know it will work out. And, I also use the opportunity because JP Morgan at that time also or around that time, he was doing a series called Creating in Captivity. And it was about, just kind of bucking the mass hypnosis of, believing and kind of getting enrolled in the fearful messages that are coming through from friends, family, media, right? It's just a bombardment. And, so I was like, listen, what you are saying is true only if you believe it. right? And more people are believing it. And that's why it seems as though things are going in that direction. But that does not mean that it's necessarily true for you and for me. What is true is what I declare, and I am going to thrive as a personal coach. I am going to succeed financially with my own business. And they started to feel that and realize, hey, like that means it. That means it. And my son he's a man of very little words. So his comment was like, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because he was just like, yeah, of course, why not? Speak it, do it,
Yeah, yeah. With this sharing, and there's two things. There's like the permission to dream, but then there's also the permission to share your dream. I have found that there have been people with whom I feel really inspired to share my dreams with, and other people where I feel my dream is met with a lot of resistance of their own. And I found myself being more intentional with who I share my dream with. And I'm wondering, how does that play out in terms of creation, and how do you see that?
Wow. That's a great question. I love that question. And I'm just so curious for you, right? So,
yeah,
because you're somebody who is permission. Your being is permission to speak. I know this from our previous conversations, right? So like in your space, I feel very free, liberated to just share. But for you, I'm curious, like, what do you experience in people that has you feel comfortable for you to share your dream, your visions?
Well, when I feel they want what's best for me and a sense of encouragement, then it does feel, first of all, it feels vulnerable to share a dream when you don't have an answer to how to, other than through commitment, certainty, and dedication and declaration. So one of the things that I declared for myself is that I am creating the possibility to do transformational work with hospitality leaders around the world. And my background is hospitality, and I've had I just had a burnout from trying to look good, being too committed to looking good and always pleasing. I was a professional people pleaser. I kind of joke about that. And so I want to come back to the hotel industry and create a new possibility, a new way of being, a new way of leading, a new way of being hospitality, actually being. And when I speak that into the world, just to give you an example, I said something, I was saying something like that to my brother, for example. And he was really challenged by that. And he said, well, or for example, my father, I wouldn't say something, but he would say something like, hold your horses. That's one of the things is hold your horses is like, don't speak anything into the future. Tell me once it's done. And actually in my whole family it kind of lives by that. And it's kind of like this humility to, not declare anything. So I've held back in the way I share and what I share. And, I'm wondering if that holding back if that is wisdom, or if that is also holding back on my own self-expression.
Isn't that the question, right? How do I know what's divine wisdom or my own wisdom versus my selfish desires? That's such an interesting one. How do you feel into that?
Well, it reminds me of, one of my, I rewatched this amazing movie, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, that's great.
Have you watched it? There's there was a time when he was what's the lead singer's name? I just had a blank out.
Oh gosh,
it was
he just put me on the spot. I'm like, Queen, right?
yeah, Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury, yes.
Yes, and he was just a garage. He was just starting out as a singer, and he had such confidence, and he just knew that he was made for greatness.
Yes.
And when I see that, I can recognize that not only in myself, but in everyone. And it is about, and he, you know, his dad was kind of like similar to in the story, you know, he was very much like, you know, giving him advice on how to live his life. And he would just say to his dad, yes, exactly. Have good thoughts, some, you know, something. And he just said to them like, yeah, how's that working out for you, Dad?
Right.
And that was his way of dealing with it. But I'm coming to you without a knowing here, you know, I'm just being curious with that question. And I'm just really interested to hear what's your perspective on that. Not that there's a right or wrong way, but I would love to hear Darren's perspective on this.
Well, let me mirror something to you. You told me about your vision and your desire to lead and be a leader in this hospitality industry. And you were very specific. And in your being, you felt very clean and certain and from a heart of service. It hit me when you asked, and I teased you. I said, well, I don't know anybody in 5-star industry, you know, in 5-star hospitality. But it resonated so much that your declaration and your ask that something occurred to me. It's like, actually, I know the vice president of a local, it's like we call it a quasi-governmental organization. They have 2 hotels in their portfolio that they manage. And I thought to myself, I would love to introduce Philip to the VP of hotels in Trinidad here. So there is something about the way you share that influences and creates in the person, right? And that's not as much the words, but the being, who you're being in that declaration of your vision. And I'm also being very specific here. Like, it's not just about sharing, but it's about asking for what you want too.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And I think you said it. There's this idea of just confidence, of knowing, of certainty,
right,
that inoculates yourself from
it really does. It really does. Yes.
Yeah.
Because of course there's the story of who am I to coach this person? And that story, even though it's there, I don't need to big myself up and create a better story or to make myself worthy or anything. All I can do is just notice it and be present with it and not let it be anything that gets in the way from the certainty and the knowing and the commitment that I have with myself and with what I want to create in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you for, you know, mirroring that back to me.
Yeah. You know, one of my teachers, a mentor, she told me that don't share your vision, don't share your desires and your creations, because people's energy becomes envious and you know, there can be repercussions.
Yeah, my wife tells me that.
Yeah, right. You know, and I'm like, that is so strange. Like, it doesn't feel true to me. That might happen, but their jealousy or their, you know, their negativity, if I am grounded in my truth, it doesn't affect me. It can't. You know, my energy is clean in it, and I will take. Look, I want to be humble enough to take feedback, right? But I also know that my path is my path, and nobody could understand it the way I understand it. You know, my vision is mine, and the more I can be in that and be certain, and not certain about how, but certain that that is going to be manifest in the world, and that I can step into being that creates that vision, then yeah, say what you want, because it's only until I believe what you're saying that it's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? And as you say that, what I'm noticing is it's already happening. I'm already having conversations that are making a difference in the lives of hospitality leaders. That's actually happening as we speak. It's something that is happening. And that came through commitment, but it really came through the declaration first.
Yes.
And yeah, that's really the power of self-creation.
Really is. So let's talk a little bit about that, because JP Morgan really opened my eyes to this power of declaration.
Right.
And, it's something that we teach in creating the business that I'm in with JP. And I know it's very big in, Steve's world. I think JP got a lot of his understanding of this and practice of this through Steve's teaching and mentoring. So it's a practice that I have taken on, and it took me a little while to really get the power and the, I would say, the commitment to the practice of it. Not just, every so often I'll speak it, or like when I really in tune with something I want, I'm going to create myself to be that. It's like, no, this is a daily practice. This is a continuous practice of declaring my state of being and self-creation, as you said, self-creation every day. Every moment really is an opportunity. And I'm not sure how deep this goes into this in the book. I think it speaks about this in the document creation. But for me, the origin of these declarations comes from these places of fear and disbelief or unuseful beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literally being attuned and aware of these stories that we're telling ourselves from the past that we're bringing into the present, that are actually tethering us to a way of being that's not going to take us to what we want, but just continue to create more of what we have created in the past. Yeah. So becoming attuned to those things and then creating freedom from them. That is the key. Creating freedom from those beliefs, from those judgments about yourself that you've taken on and believed about yourself.
Yeah.
And then
and limitations that you have, that some of them may not even appear to be judgments. Some of them may appear to be strengths, yet there's still a limitation. I think judgment, we have a very strong word to that. It's really an identity of something that looks permanent around your personality, around who you think you are. And when that looks permanent, it's a limitation, even though it's a strength.
That's such a great point. I think that happens because these things, these ideas about ourselves, a lot of them are coping mechanisms,
right,
or defense mechanisms that we've used to travel through difficult situations or, difficult circumstances. So we navigate through them and we're like, oh, wow, that worked. So that means, that's going to work again in the future. And you're right. It can be, any strength can become a liability, in that sense, because you're no longer facing that situation. You've transcended that, but you're holding on to that way of being because it's safe, or it creates a sense of safety.
I want to share a story, around that, and I understand that the way Steve Hardison does it is through declarations and also practice, and I know that that's been really powerful for him and with the work you've been doing with JP. And at the same time, I also recognize that there are sometimes it can just also be real simple shifts that doesn't necessarily come from this need to have a practice. So I want to speak to that as well. I have just recently I was in conversation with a client who came to me and she said, I really want to work on my negotiation skills. And she had a new business that she was wanting to get the licensing fee for Switzerland. And so she had she wanted to go in there and she wanted to up level her negotiation skills. Now, I could have spent an hour working on her negotiation skills, helped her get better at negotiating. But it occurred to me that there would be something more helpful than that. And so often when we want to get something, what we look at is what's missing. So what do I need to add? What skills, what knowledge, what know-how do I need to add in order to get something? But what we generally don't look at is what do we already have? What's already there? And so getting rid of the idea and the notion that we need to add something allows us to let that go, the notion that we need to add something, and look at what's here. Mm-hmm. And as we started exploring that and we worked at her level of being, she had a lot of ideas around the idea that she needed to be a good negotiator because that's what business is about. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you don't know how to do business. And so all of these stories started coming up for her. And I said, well, what if you just could be yourself? And she was kind of confused by that question. And as we explored, we kind of got deeper and we created, and I helped her create herself to be fun, playful, and courageous. So she was a possibility for fun, playful, and courageous. And now all of a sudden there was a complete shift in her being. So the thing she was dreading the most, having to negotiate, was something she was bringing an energy of fun, playful, and courageous. Now, the interesting thing is we never spoke about how-tos, strategies, or what to do. But through her shift in being, she went and spent the day with this business associate who came to Switzerland. She took her out for lunch in a beautiful hotel and everything went great. She was being fun. She was being playful. She was just being herself. And when they ordered dessert, she had kind of made this special kind of tailor-made cake and she had ordered some candles. And she had an idea in her head of what she wanted to pay for this licensing fee. That was $88,888. And she had 5 candles with the number 8. She put each candle in the cake. And at the time when she was just with her partner, instead of negotiating, she said, "This is what I'm willing to pay." And then she had a lighter. And he just smiled and he just couldn't say no. And he just said to her, "Well, that's wonderful." She lit up the 5 candles. They had a glass of champagne together and celebrated. And the whole thing was negotiation free. She was fun. She was playful. She was courageous. And what happened after that is, on a side joke, he said to her, I came here today and I promised myself I'm not going to go under 100,000. But the way you presented that, I just couldn't say no.
I love that story, Philip. That's so powerful and beautiful. Yeah.
So
actually,
yeah.
Just as a tangent, that when you said 800, what is that? 888?
88,888.
So for some reason, yesterday I saw those numbers. Apparently it was some kind of Lion's Gate, something or the other, energetic portal. I don't know exactly, but those numbers popped into my awareness yesterday. So that was interesting when you said that. But I love that story. And you're right. You're so right. I've grappled with this myself, by the way. I come from a background of studying 3 principles. And, even before that, I have a practice of meditation, Vipassana meditation. And I became very enthralled in the idea of surrender. So I studied Dr. David Hawkins, his books, Empowerment versus Force and Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender, this type of thing. spent hours watching his videos and learning and practicing surrender and letting go. And, Vipassana is the observation, the equanimous observation of phenomena. And I love that path. I love it. It's so beautiful to be in peace, just to create peace through those things, through those practices and those techniques. And I got to a point though, I was like, but how do I actually create the big dream? How do I move forward to actually create this thing that feels like it's possible, but I don't know how, like, who do I need to be? Do I just need to be surrendered and trust in God and like just do what my intuition tells me? I mean, that sounds great. I didn't have much success, because I kept falling back into patterns of my old self, my past, right? And I kept seeing evidence that those beliefs I had about myself were true, because the people in my life they were mirroring back to me my old beliefs and like how I had created myself in them was being mirrored back to me. So how do I transcend this? It took me a while to realize that, actually it was something that Steve said. Steve said, if you want to create peace, drop story. If you want to produce, create story. And that just clicked.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Like, I get it. Yeah. It's like, let me drop the stories that are having me feel like shit and having me feel disempowered. I can drop that and drop into peace and love, tune into the desires of my heart, tune into my vision, and then declare myself as a way of being, as a being that creates that has that already.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Yes. And you're creating from a foundation of peace.
Yes.
From a foundation of power and possibility.
Yes.
I love that. And I had spent, like you, a lot of time surrendering and letting go of story and finding myself in this beautiful space of peace. But my creation was a mess. Like I wasn't creating intentionally. I was just kind of allowing, surrendering and seeing what gets created. And it wasn't bad, but I say it was messy because there was no real, and there was mystery and wonder and it was a wonderful time. But I got more interested in actually creating what I want to create and less interested in surrendering to the mystery and see where life leads to.
Well, it's both and, isn't it?
I think if you listen, I'm more interested in and less interested than, so it's like, for me, it's like where I want to put my attention and my growth is into moving in the space of creation.
Yes.
And this is what this book, The Ultimate Coach, has opened. It opened me up to an understanding and a possibility for creation.
Yes.
For creating story. And the document is definitely a way to access that.
It's one way. Yeah.
It's one way. And I also want to say it's one way, and it's certainly not the only way, but it is one way. And like everything, I also think the document isn't something that necessarily works for everyone. And that's just my opinion. And I may be wrong about that, but I also feel that it's important for people to give it a try. And, actually not even give it a try. I actually think that if you do something with absolute conviction,
that's it. Yeah.
Then it will work.
Yeah. I think you're right. I know you're right in that. I remember the TBO LIT NFL, right? That the essence of that video for me, years and years ago, I saw that and I was like, wow, commitment creates, and that has been a journey of learning really what it means, how to be committed.
Yeah.
How to be so committed, like this document. People, when they say document, I don't use that term, but I get it. Like it's okay, it's a document. But to me, it's a living document, right? It's like literally declaration of being that I declare in this moment off the page, more in my internal experience.
Yeah.
You close my eyes, I say the words, but I'm looking in my mind's eye at images of me being that thing. I'm experiencing in my body a context where I'm being that, and I'm seeing the effect of that being occur in real time in my experience. So
I feel that. I feel that. And
but to your point, everybody's got to walk their path and do what feels and works, right? So I don't know if it's a case of people are not doing it right, or I don't know, I'm saying that words with inverted commas, but I think that if people spent time reflecting on being the thing that they want, that's going to have an impact on their experience, and that's going to govern how they see the world, and that's going to impact on their action taking, and not just impact on the action taking, but the quality of that action. And that's what, to me, this book is about, is creating through that intentionality and through the truth of your being.
What a beautiful conversation, Darren. It's like time has flown by in your presence, and we are already reaching the end of our time together. So I wanted to, just take a moment to, thank you for all your sharings. I'm really this is what I want to listen to again. I feel like there's something more for me to hear and to see here. So thank you for sharing all that. And I wanted to ask you if there's anything you would like to share before we complete this conversation today.
Just my pure gratitude, Philip, for you in particular, your presence, your honesty, your sincerity. You're such an awesome host and conversationalist. I really enjoy being in your space and having these conversations with you. This is probably the best one yet we've had, and we've had a few. So thank you for the opportunity to reflect and to self-create myself in those reflections. Thank you for your reflections of me and who I am for you. But also just thank you for, again, this work that you're doing and sharing these insights and helping others to share their insights. And just as a community, it's such a beautiful thing to be part of and to witness and to grow with, grow through. So thanks to you, to Steve, to the whole crew that is, behind the scenes making things happen. My heartfelt gratitude to you.
Thank you for saying that, because there are a lot of people that are putting in work and hours and volunteering their time for this podcast to be alive. And so I want to, particularly have a shout out to Evans Putman, who's really the one who's bringing all this together and who is putting a lot of time into this, and Michelle as well, who's also doing a lot of editing. And so, I just wanted to thank them and acknowledge them for the great work that they're doing. Darren, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or feel inspired to connect with you?
Philip, the first thing that comes to mind is we are part of a group called We Are Creating. The company is called Creating. So our website is wearecreating.com. You can come and check us out. JP is the founder. I'm a creating champion there. And, if anybody just wants to read my little bio, that's available. But to get to know me, I would love you guys to reach out. I'm on social media. I'm in the Ultimate Coach Facebook group. So feel free to look me up there on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. And coming soon, www.darrenfarfan.com. DARRENFARFAN.com. I've never had a website, but since we spoke, the desire is born and it will be done. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you also, all of you that have tuned in today and listened. And if there's anything that you've heard around creation, any insights that you've had, both, Darren and I always love hearing back from what people get out of these conversations. So please do feel free to reach out, share, connect, and let us know what you have heard. Darren, it's been a joy. Thank you once again. I wish you well. And I am excited for the possibility of you living the dream with your family. I have this beautiful image of you on a boat with your family, and I would love to join you on one of those boat trips one day.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for saying that. I just saw us doing that, so it's going to be great. And just to let you know that on Friday, I'm heading to the Mediterranean to spend a week on a luxury yacht with my beautiful bride, my wife of 23 years. We're taking an extraordinary holiday to be together, celebrating our love for one another and our achievements and our dreams. So
that's so beautiful. That's so inspiring. And see, you are already creating. It's already in the works.
Yep.
It is happening.
So thank you everyone for tuning in across space and time. Really appreciate your presence here. And again, thanks to you and the team. Much love. Blessings.
Much love to you, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you know someone who would benefit from today's conversation, please share this podcast with them. Also, we invite you to visit theultimatecoachbook.com so you can continue your personal exploration of being. There you will find links to join our wonderful community, get your own copy of the Ultimate Coach book, and more. Simply go now to www.theultimatecoachbook.com. That's www.theultimatecoachbook.com. The link is also available in the show notes. We appreciate your support. Be blessed. Be you.